Turning your passion into your profession is not easy, and the simple truth is that most photographers fail as they go into business. In this video, I want to discuss 5 of what I believe are the most common reasons for why that is, and the goal here is to hopefully help each of you in your own journeys. My name is Pi, and I'm one of the founders of Lynn and Jersa Photography and SLRLounge.com. We're teaming up with Adorama to bring you a new series of photography tutorials called Master Your Craft right here on Adorama TV. So let's dive in. What's up, friends? My name is Pi. Welcome to Adorama TV. Welcome back to my home studio. So look, the older I get, the more I am beginning to realize just how much I value when people are honest, straightforward with me, when they don't beat around the bush, when they're authentic, and most of all, when they don't waste my time. And I want to do the exact same thing for each of you. And namely, this video, it's not a comprehensive list for why photographers fail in their businesses. These are just 5 of the most common things that I have seen amongst our students, among our community. And they're also the mistakes that I have personally made myself. So I figure if you guys can learn from my mistakes, learn from the mistakes of those around you, then by all means, because these are mistakes that you don't have to make yourself. And what you're about to hear is kind of what I wish someone would have told me when I first joined the industry. So as you can tell, this video is going to be podcast style, meaning you guys can listen to it while you work, while you exercise, do some other safe activity. If you want to look at my mug, by all means, go ahead. Let's get into it with number 1. Most photographers fail when they go into business because they set the wrong expectations for what they're getting into. Okay, so photography is your hobby. It's your passion. You become good at it. In fact, so many people around you see your work and they're like, that is just as good as the pros. You should become a professional. This scenario happens all the time. And I know so many incredible amateur photographers who are creating, by all means, could be considered professional work. And really the only difference between an amateur and a professional is simply that the professional is making their living from shooting, whereas the amateur is not, right? But it has nothing to do with the quality of work that they're creating. But either way, this is the scenario. So they go into photography as a business because of this passion that they have for photography as a hobby to create. Now, before I get into the fallacy of that, I want to walk you through a different scenario, a different analogy. You're great at making coffee, okay? In fact, coffee is your passion. And goodness, passion for me is becoming a 4-letter word, and you're going to quickly understand why. But you love coffee, and given that you're a photographer, this might be very appropriate anyway. Okay, you love coffee. In fact, you have every tool, every means, and every bit of knowledge of making any type of coffee you want. You want the perfect drip coffee, you got it. You want the espresso, you got it. Vietnamese coffee, you can do it. I mean, you know the ins and outs of everything, and each morning you find it cathartic to spend time making the perfect drip. In fact, I got a buddy that does this, and he made me the perfect drip. It was fantastic. It took him 25 minutes, okay? But he enjoys it. Making 1 or 2 of those a day, one for you, one for your friend, your spouse, that's fun, that's enjoyable. You get to choose what you make, when you make it, how you're going to do it, all of that. Now I want you to take that hobby of enjoying making coffee and imagine what it would become if you ran a coffee shop. Let's say you're Starbucks. So running a Starbucks, you have to think, would be very different than making coffee as a hobby, right? Your clients are going to come, each person comes in wanting to order what they want to order when they want to order it, and they're going to expect you to not only do it in a timely fashion, but they're going to expect it to be consistent. Not just like as good as it was yesterday. They're going to expect that one Starbucks is as good as the next Starbucks and that the same drink is at the same place. They expect that consistency of what they've come to know. So the freedom of creating and doing what you want, of making that drip for your friend, of choosing a different drink, of doing it at a different time of day, that's gone. And what you enjoyed in making a cup of coffee is very much going to be lost in owning a coffee shop. The exact same thing happens in the world of photography. And I see people jumping into the space of being a professional photographer with the expectation that that creative freedom carries along with it. Yes, there is some creative freedom, but at the end of the day, you're supposed to develop a style. You're supposed to focus in on a niche. You're supposed to create a sense of consistency to your work so one client after the next knows what they're getting when they hire you and your services. And when they do so, they're going to expect that you deliver that work on their timetable, to their expectations. And what you enjoyed about it as a hobby, as a free passion, is lost. A huge part of this video is telling you that it's okay to enjoy photography as a hobby. That's totally fine. Somewhere along the way, it suddenly wasn't okay to have hobbies. We felt like we had to make money on every single thing that we're doing, and it's absolutely insane. I have so many hobbies that I enjoy, okay? I have loved racing cars. You know what I thought when I was racing cars? Would I enjoy this as a profession? I mean, I was decent at it, but then I thought, what it would take. I would need to sit in that car for 8 hours a day, be at the track every single day, smelling the fumes, the gas, being in a hot box, going around the track, my butt hurting, everything nonstop just to be. I don't want that just to make a living. Same thing with jujitsu. I absolutely love jujitsu, but would I want to use it to make a living? No, everything that I love about these hobbies would be gone in the process of turning it into a profession. So first, understand that photography as a hobby is perfectly okay. And just because you're passionate about something doesn't mean you have to turn it into your profession. Okay, I've said enough about that, right? So let's go on to number 2. The second reason that photographers fail when going into business is a lack of focus. All right, so you've got the expectation down. You know that parts of the job are going to be enjoyable, other parts are going to be a grind. Either way, you're in it to win it. But here's the thing. You're good at multiple genres of photography. I mean, you do the engagement photography, and that leads to wedding photographs, which then leads to maternity and newborn, and that makes sense. But you know what? Some of your clients have businesses, and you want to do commercial photography too. You'll shoot their building, their real estate. You'll also do food photography. And you know what? You like doing cars too. So you're going to put cars in there. You're going to put some architecture in there. On the weekends, you like going out and doing street portraits. You get my drift. Your entire portfolio is just filled with all these different things that you do. The first thing that I'm going to say here, I'm going to be plain and truthful with each of you. In 99.9% of scenarios, when I see a photographer who says, I'm good at doing all of these things, they're not. It's just a matter of time. You can't think that in all of these genres, you can create work that is on par with the professionals that are specializing in those genres. Could you create average to above average work in many different genres? Sure, a lot of people can do that. But to succeed in any one of these niches, at least to do it to a scale where you can actually sustain yourself and build a good income, you have to create work that's above and beyond that average point. And you're not going to be able to get there in multiple niches when it takes thousands of hours in each of them to develop the expertise and technical skills that you need. So if you want to do newborn, there are people, that's all that they do, and they specialize only on it. They have thousands of hours to that craft. And believe me, it's so very different than doing portraits for seniors. Each of these different genres is completely different than one another. But let's just assume for 1 second that you fall into this 0.01% of person that's just a photographic genius. I mean, every genre of image that you create is at the caliber of the professional who specializes in those areas. I know this is a completely asinine assumption to begin with because most of us can never even get close to this, right? But let's just assume that that's the case. Then you're going to run into problem number 3. See, most photographers fail in business because they don't understand their audience. What does that mean? Well, in marketing, you have to know who you're speaking to, right? Right now in this video, for example, I am very clearly speaking to those of you that want to become a professional photographer. You're a photographer who enjoys the craft and you're thinking about going to this as a profession. So I know very much what your mindset is because I've identified who the target audience for this specific video is, so I can speak to you directly and plainly. Okay, that means that coming up with a title or say a clarified message is very easy. The title for this video is pretty straightforward. The content of the video is pretty straightforward. Okay, but what does that mean, Pi, in marketing terms? Let's talk just within one single niche of photography. Let's talk weddings. Within weddings, there are a number of different types of clients or different audiences that you could potentially be speaking to. And the message and images that you would need to show to, let's say, a Jewish Orthodox couple is going to be very different than the images that you might want to show to, let's say, a South Asian bride, or let's say the adventuring couple who wants to go and do destination shoots around the world and shoot all sorts of crazy images. Those 3 different couples represent 3 completely different audiences within one niche. And the way that you would speak to each of them would be different. Now imagine trying to market a product across all of these different genres. Oh, I do wedding portraits, and in case you also need, I also do editorial portraits. And in case you also need, I do fashion. And just, because you're getting married, maybe you have a business. And if you do, I do food as well. And I also do commercial and real estate. And I do architecture. Anything you need, this is your one-stop photography. No, we don't shop that way. None of us do. When was the last time you went to a one-stop shop to buy anything other than 7-Eleven, which we're all there to buy general consumer goods, right? When you want anything of a high caliber, you go to the person that specializes in each of those areas. Now, from a marketing standpoint, this message is a cluster. I mean, it is so convoluted. And what we think is, with each of these different genres that we're covering, we're expanding our audience. I do this and I do this. So that way I'm covering even a larger audience of people that want my stuff. But that's not what's happening. With every additional genre, with every additional type of client that you lump into this, you're not adding to your audience, you're actually taking it away. You're saying that if you're interested in weddings, and you might be interested in commercial work, and you might want to hire me to go and do some food photography for your business, and then I'm your person. That is not communicating. That is not opening up your audience. That is narrowing it down to a person that says, oh, I am 1 in a million. I do have a business. I also need some wedding photographs, and I also could use this. That's the person that will end up hiring you. And there's not enough of those people to make it a successful business. So, point being, when you lack a focus, you have no clue who your potential audience is. And when you don't know who your audience is, you can't craft a message. You can't create a website. You don't know what to show. Everything is just a prayer. I mean, this is closing your eyes, grabbing darts and throwing it at the board, hoping you get somewhere close. Okay, 1 in 1,000, you might, but that's about it. Okay, enough of that. Number 4. Most photographers fail in business because we get lost in the technical. What does that mean? Well, somewhere along the way, all of us get lost in the technical aspects of the craft, so much so that it becomes our reason and our excuse for every possible thing that's going wrong in our business. In fact, it becomes how we sell as well. We call it feature selling. You probably know what it's like. You get a client that comes and sits in front of you, and maybe they ask you a question like, why should I hire you? Or tell me what's different about your work, whatever it might be. Now, never mind the fact that inside of our actual sales training, we teach you not to let conversations go there and to guide the conversation to a much more effective place. Never mind that. But let's just say that you end up answering the question. What do we answer with? We say things like, oh, you hire me because I have expensive gear. Or because, I'm using top of the line everything. I got a 45 megapixel camera. I got $10,000 of pro photo gear and nobody else does. Or, what specializes me and differentiates me from everybody else is my unique use of compositions and the way that I light my couples. Let me just show you some examples. This is feature selling down to a T. And I know you've done it. I've done it. We all do it. It just depends how long we get stuck in this process. And what's happening is, in that process of getting lost in the technical, we're losing our ability to relate to the person sitting across from us, namely the client who doesn't see photography in the same way that we do. Now, you have the same friends that do this, and they explain every wrong thing that's going on in their business in the same way. Why is it that Sally got that booking and I didn't? Oh man, it must be my gear. If only I could upgrade to a full frame camera. My clients would see it. If only I can get that f2 lens. man, Tommy's shooting with that 85 f2, and you know Tommy's bokeh is like the bokeh to bokeh, and the clients like can see it, and they're like, oh man, Tommy's bokeh is so legit. If I had Tommy's 85 1.2, you know I'd book more gigs. I laugh because I've thought this to myself. I've also heard this probably 1,000 times along the way. And the truth is, your clients don't see any of this. They can't tell the difference between f1.2 or f2. In fact, they don't even know what a full frame camera is. They don't understand the differences between your aperture, your focal length. And if you muddy them all up and group them together, they probably wouldn't stop you to say otherwise. What your clients are there for is this overall experience. And when you're lost in the technical, you're kind of doing exactly what leads to reason number 5, which is most photographers fail in their business because they don't actually understand what they're selling. You're not selling a photograph. You know who was selling a photograph 30, 40 years ago when taking a picture was highly technical? It's always been highly technical. You could argue that, right? But when it was back on film and when you had to use, light meters and you had to get everything picture perfect because you only had 36 exposures and you only had a limited number of film and a limited number of time and everything had to be perfect. Those were the days where you were selling a photograph. But even then, the best photographers were selling something more than that. They were selling the ability to take what someone values and turn it into a photograph. But because the technical expertise was so specialized, if you just knew the technical, it was enough to make a decent living, right? You know when those photographers all lost their jobs? When it went to digital. See, when everything transitioned to digital, then photography was no longer just about the technical. In fact, what we were creating and what we were selling actually became more pure through each iteration of the technology that makes our lives easier, right? The tools have made the process of getting to what we sell that much more clean and simple. And what you're selling is not technical expertise. That anybody has. That anyone can do. The way that you light, the way that you shoot, the way that you edit, yes, maybe it takes a bit of training, but that's something that anybody can replicate. What you're actually selling is the psychological ability to understand what the client in front of you values and to be able to translate that into a photograph, to be able to turn it into something that they can use to advertise that matches their brand, to be able to turn it into a memory, something they can look back on and remember fondly in that moment. What you're creating is understanding who that person is and then using your technical knowledge to craft it into something that represents what they already have in their minds. This has always been the product that photographers were truly selling. And the evolution of the camera has just made it more simple to get to that place. But that's also the place that's never going to be really outdone by technology, right? What AI can sit across from me, talk to me like a human being, understand the message that I want to convey, what I want in my photographs, whether it's a wedding, whether it's an engagement, whether I'm trying to carry a message in a brand. Man, I want my brand to convey just this ability to be able to learn in a simple way. I'm creating a new brand called 12-Week Relationships. I want people to understand that I can help them create better relationships in a 12-week time. What AI could sit across from me, asking the right question, understanding what I want to communicate, and then translate that into the photograph? I'm not going to say that it's never going to happen, but I will say that that is probably going to be 100 years down the road. That's going to be beyond our lifetimes, and you will have long finished your career before that day ever comes. But if you're leaning on the photograph as being that thing that you're selling, then you're always going to be beholden to the person that can do it cheaper in every situation. If what you're selling is simply a photograph, then your price is going to be predicated on those around you who are willing to do it at the prices that they're willing to do it. And right now, those are pretty cheap prices. I mean, it would be very difficult to sustain yourself as a photographer when you're competing on cost. So you have to know what exactly it is that you're selling. As a photographer, what you're selling is not a photograph. It's an experience. It's the experience of sitting across from your clients, getting to know them, what they value, and then turning those values into tangible products right in front of their eyes. Your means of doing so is a camera, is a photograph, but that's it. I hope you guys have enjoyed this video. I hope in some ways it was insightful. Maybe it helps you to avoid some of the pitfalls that I know I've made myself, that I see so many of us make. And maybe if you're already stuck in kind of one of these things, it helps you to kind of get off and out of this plateau and back to growing as a professional. In the meantime, if you guys enjoyed, please give the video a thumbs up. I know it's weird to ask, but it helps us out on the channel a lot. Other things that help us out is to share the video, comment below, let us know what you guys think. Last but not least, if you enjoy the way that I teach, I'd urge you to check out slrloungeworkshops.com. Inside is an entire library, and the way that I like to teach is an A to Z framework that covers everything from the technical aspects of the creative parts of what we do as photographers to the soft skills, the psychology, understanding how to run a business and how to sell and close clients. It's all there. It's all from A to Z, so check it out as well. Meantime, you guys can follow me at Pi Jirsa, and I'll see you guys back here, same time, same place on Adorama TV. Peace.